Good evening, Mr. Bond fans, and welcome once again to another Bond movie debate. I'm Calvin, and back as always with the daunting task of having to defend his low ranking of Roger Moore favorite Octopussy is the Bond experience himself, David Zaritsky. How are you, David?
I'm fine. I had to really push myself for this one because I know I'm going to be getting up against some big boxing gloves here.
Yeah, this is one that seems to be really like high ranking amongst the Bond community these days. It's one that gets an
Yeah.
awful lot of love, as was demonstrated when you were doing your ranking video and you nestled this right there in between. I think it was Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only. So yeah, you had the Roger Moore fans with their arms up in the air.
I did. It was number 19 out of 24. And what I find is this, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this, but this film, it can be a bit polarizing in the general public, but with the Bond community, it's almost like, defensive. People really have a lot of heart for this. It's almost got, dare I say, a cult following, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I know that the comments are going to be against me. And the last one, I think that they were pummeling you a bit. Now's my turn to get a black eye or two.
No, I think you're totally right with that. When you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, when you look at polls by websites that aren't necessarily Bond dedicated sites, this one's always at the bottom with the likes of Die Another Day, Diamonds Are Forever, Man with the Golden Gun. But in the Bond community, it does have kind of a life of its own aside from those, which is, yeah, well, we're going to get into it anyway, because I'm a
Absolutely.
big fan of this one. So I did want to start a little bit differently, actually, by
Oh,
putting to you quite a broad question, and I'm sure we'll touch on this as we go
sure.
through, because normally I like to sort of go through the elements of Bond, the women, the gadgets, the action, the villains, all that kind of stuff. I feel like if we did that, we would end up actually agreeing quite a bit on a lot of things. Like I think we'd like a lot of the same elements, as it were. So
Mm.
I want to ask you, as like a broad overall, like what is Octopussy missing? Because I know you don't dislike
Ah,
Octopussy, but it must be doing something wrong to be so low in your rankings if there's so many other Bond films that you prefer above it. So what is it doing wrong? What is it missing to kind of nudge it up a little bit?
I like this because this is it's a little bit unformed, which we can go in a lot of different directions. And you're right. I mean, it's an important statement to start off with. I don't dislike this movie at all. In fact, I will tell you as an Octopussy defender, gosh, I said that correctly. Good. Thank goodness. PG movie. Um, is this movie as a Bond movie literally gets better every single time I watch it in my eyes. In fact, if I ranked it today, it would go up the ranking. So every time I've seen it, and I've seen it maybe like I would say 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years since the Spectre hiatus, as we're calling it, it gets better and better. I find more things to enjoy about it, but I think I realize why. And I have to tell you, again, on the same vein of liking this movie, I'm sitting here in front of my Octopussy display replenished with a robe of which I am not going to wear for you as much as you've asked me to many a time, because I really do really like the movie. I think it's very good. I don't love it. I certainly like it enough, and I like you enough that today I dressed up in the manhunt outfit.
I love it.
Um, I've worn the titillating TV watch. I've tried to still theme myself, but it gets, as I was putting this on, I realized what it is about Octopussy, and I can get into then what it's missing. This is campy, cheesy, gooey, goofy fun. It just is. To me, this is like the epitome of the Roger Moore campy cheesy. So when I'm in the mood, which I was when I just saw this a few days ago, I was in too much information. I was having a pretty trying week job wise. It's in the middle of all these things happening, pitches galore, employees screaming at me, the usual. Um, and I needed to remove myself. This was it. This was a big cheese pizza with like grease dripping off of it down my face with a giant, ugly, 50-cent beer just chugging it down my throat. And when a Bond fan is in the mood for that, it's amazing. What's missing for me is a couple cohesive storylines that come together. To me, they clearly, as a group, and I know we're getting into it, came away from For Your Eyes Only and said, fine, but you know, we got to think about Roger Moore because they were putting all their stakes into Roger Moore. They say, shit, Sean Connery's back. You know, Brolin was a great idea. He had a great test. You've got a great video where you actually talk about that and show some of that. But we got to go for the big guns again. So Roger Moore's back. And if he's back, let's put all of our chips where Roger Moore does his best. Roger Moore is the comedian's Bond. And here's the equation I put to it. And this is all giving you what I'm missing at the heart of it, why it doesn't rank higher. I love Batman. I do. I love Batman. It's a weird confession, but I love the 1960s Adam West Batman. I used to watch it as a kid. Nostalgically, I'll put it on every now and then. 24 minutes of just ridiculous fun. When you watch Christian Bale as Batman, Chris Nolan's Batman, it's a very different Batman. Roger Moore is Adam West of the James Bond films. He is. So there's going to be camp. There's going to be giant stickers and overarching things and Tarzan yells and things like that. And if you're okay with that, and if you're in the mood for that, and you know what you're getting, that it's this gooey pizza deliciousness, you're going to really enjoy it. And that's why I've enjoyed it more and more. What would be missing for me in ranking it higher and saying it goes from good to very good or excellent is as an adult, dare I say, who maybe has lost a little bit of their edge and fun. I'll go out and say that, a little bit more serious. I feel like it's missing some of that hard-hitting Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig spy badassness that I gravitate in either emulating Bond or just losing myself in a Bond story. Like when I watch this movie, I know I'm watching a Bond film and I'm taking each part and I'm laughing at it, but I'm not in it. You know, I'm a spectator. I'm not a participant. And some of the best Bond films, even going back with From Russia with Love, make me a participant in this incredible spy game. So I know I spoke for 38 minutes, but I just wanted to give you an overview before kind of letting you have a word in edgewise.
No, that was amazing. I wasn't expecting such an articulate answer. Not that you're not incredibly articulate all the time anyway, David.
That's as good as it gets. That's it. I'm done.
But no, that was a really interesting insight into your kind of Bond taste overall, I guess. Because, I guess you feel like you need to have the more serious moments or the more believable moments or something like that.
Yeah, believable. And I would say too, what this film does, and does very successfully, is it removes you very quickly out of them. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'll give you a perfect example. And this is a miss for me. I felt like Octopussy could have been called the James Bond disguise movie. You know, it could have been like Dana Carvey's, Turtle disguise movie, Master of Disguise, starring Roger Moore in 1983 with a clown. So why? Well, he's got literally 007 disguises that I've counted. He's got Toro. He's got an art appreciator. He's got a crocodile that he disguises himself as. He's got a knife wielder. He's a circus worker carrying stuff. He's an ape. And he's a clown. So, I mean, he's in a lot of disguises, and I think that's okay for a secret agent, but I think it goes one step too far. Like, I think that's the thing with Octopussy. Like it goes, and then it goes, you know what? It's Roger Moore. We got to just push it. People are going to love it. It's 1983. Shit's happening. We got Return of the Jedi. We got to compete against. Enough of this stuff. Let's push it on. And that's like even the plot, I almost would have wanted the smuggling, Kamel Khan plot really focused on, or Orlov's part really focused on. But the way they intertwined it felt a little bit like, whoa, I didn't order that. Like, you've given me too much to eat.
Oh, that's interesting, because I think of that as being very much a trope of just 80s Bond and Living Daylights as well, which we talked about. That kind of starts out as something else, and then it becomes this about opium and selling drugs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. For Your Eyes Only as well. That's another one that very much starts out as, okay, this ship has sunk, and then we need to, then it kind of changes tact as it goes along. I think Octopussy's more serious than people give it credit for, though. I think I mean, yes, there is the Tarzan yell. Yes, he dresses up as a clown. But I think there's an awful lot of really good, serious Cold War spy stuff going on in here. And aside from Russia with Love, I think that this is the most Hitchcockian Bond film. Um,
Huh.
in terms of how the plot is weaved, I really like how we start with an egg and we end up with this giant plot to blow up a circus
Yeah.
in East Berlin. It's I think I think it needs more credit actually for some of the more serious elements,
So
particularly.
you,
Oh,
oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
on.
Sorry.
I was just
No.
going to say, like, even some of the kills that Bond gets in there's that shocking moment where he shoots that soldier in the middle of his, in between his eyes, and it's incredible. I think it kind of builds on what Roger was doing with For Your Eyes Only, where they were going for his sort of harder edge, but they're letting him do a little bit more of the stuff that he's just so much more naturally inclined to do, which is the jokes and the silly moments and the moment, that's when he's at his most charismatic and charming, I think. I think that this and Moonraker are his two best Bond performances. Like, whatever you think of the film, I think that he is just so pitch perfect as Bond in both of those things.
Uh, there's so much to unwrap there. And I no, but these debates, I think it's so funny too, because they've evolved over time. And this one's going to be that one too, as well, where I think they could, instead of be calling debates, they could be called How to Appreciate a Bond Film More by
Mm.
Calvin and David. I really do, because you're right. I mean, the reason why Octopussy, I mean, I'm telling you, if you got me 10 years ago and asked me about Octopussy, I would have been like, ugh, I won't watch it. I, you're absolutely right. It has a lot of Hitchcockian moments. It's got a lot of very serious moments, which I've really liked. And I will say too, I wouldn't change Octopussy, to go back to your original question, and make it a very serious Daniel Craig starring Roger Moore Octopussy movie. I wouldn't want that. I do
Mm.
like, just like when you're in the mood for gooey pizza. This is my gooey pizza. I don't want to change. I don't want the Tarzan yell taken out. I don't
Yeah.
want the sit taken out. I don't want those things taken out. And I certainly don't want taken out Roger Moore's amazing comedic, double takes. The smoothness and the suaveness that he has is better than any actor that's played him. And this is the most fun. I will say this, even though Live and Let Die over there is my favorite Roger Moore movie, this is the one I had the most fun with ever
Oh,
out of them.
wow.
Like, if you said, "Look, David, you're depressed, you're sad, things aren't going your way, you need to get happy. Which Roger Moore film are you going to watch?" I would put on Octopussy now in a heartbeat, because it made me happy to watch him. He's so great. He wears two tuxedos. I mean, there's so many things. And on the Hitchcock moment, I do want to unwrap that, because I got something I think you're going to be interested in that actually supports your Hitchcock thing.
Oh.
I wrote to MI6, not the podcast, the place MI6, and they actually sent me the actual Octopussy folders. And a lot of people don't know that that whole opening scene was based on a real thing, with a death of a clown. And this is like the autopsy photo of 009. This was actually the weapon that they used. I mean, you could see that it's classified now, but there's a lot of dark, seedy moments where they, MI6 investigated all this, of where this guy was killed, how he got there. I mean, it goes on and on, the fingerprints of all of this. I mean, it's really scary. And I think it does set up a Hitchcockian moment where clowns are not the funny moments. They're kind of dark and serious, like Pennywise, dare I say.
No, totally. And I think the
That was
fact
over the top. I apologize.
the fact that they are doing that with the clowns and making it so sinister, and Roger Moore is dressed up as a clown, and I think like his performance in those scenes is so perfectly judged. Like, it's not too silly. You're never forgetting about the seriousness and the stakes of the bomb potentially going off. But yeah, just on the Hitchcock elements, it is, as you say, it's the moments of irony that are
Yeah.
kind of weaved throughout the entire thing. The intricate spy plot. I think this is the best. Is it the best? Yeah, no, I think it's probably my favorite Cold War plot of the Bond films, because I think in some
Oh,
of them,
of all of them.
yeah, I think in some of them, you could, like in A View to a Kill, for instance, the Cold War element is kind of quite ham-fistedly like shoved in there. It's like Zorin's an ex-KGB. It doesn't really make much sense. With this one, I feel like it really does. And I like it more than what they do with Gogol in, you know, For Your Eyes Only. The Living Daylights is another one. There was a lot of Cold War stuff in the 80s in Bond. And I feel like this one just nails that. The whole idea of setting the climax around this ticking bomb that's about to go off, that's a classic Hitchcock thing of, you know, let the audience know more than the characters on screen. And we know so much more than, so yeah, all the characters know different pieces of this information. Just that construction is very Hitchcockian. And I think it works really well. This is, and also to your point of it, this film being sort of like the comfort food Bond, I completely agree with that. This is, along with Tomorrow Never Dies, the Pierce Brosnan film, obviously. These are my two, like if I'm at home and I'm ill from work or whatever, and I just need to relax and just have some fun, pulpy Bond entertainment, those are the two that I will go for first above all the others, even though neither of them are my very favorites. Probably not even, you know, in my top 5. There's something about them that is just so, I like that they're not really pushing into new territory that much. They just kind of get on with what they're good at and, you know, just provide some fun entertainment, really.
The way they use the tropes, especially the tropes that we've come to embrace that, and dare I say in many cases in the newer movies we miss, is masterful. I mean, somebody really wove them perfectly. Where I think it falls down is exactly one of the things that you really like. I loved, like you do, the Cold War discussion. I love the storyline. Even, you know, Orlov's, you know, over the top performance, you know, which is perfect for 1983 cheesy movie, doesn't taint it in any way, because I do like that storyline. What I found was, as somebody that's being very picky about my Bond films, because they're Bond films, I found it becoming a bit unraveled. Like, if you're going to do that, weave it seamlessly into the smuggling aspect, or Kamal Khan, and, you know, you almost had like one too many bad guys here. And then, you know, Octopussy, which I wanted to have Octopussy kind of do. I thought she was great, and we're going to get to her, I'm sure, but I wanted her to do more as far as being, excuse the pun, I wanted her to do more, as far as being a real linchpin to this story, as opposed to someone that was almost like a side effect of the story. And then ultimately you have a ticking bomb. Well, okay, and I see that what he was trying to do. I think for a Bond film, this is going to sound terrible, which has never been, you know, Tolstoy. It's never been, you know, this it doesn't need to be this high thinking movie. I think they did a fine job. I just feel like the Cold War could have been this solid foundation throughout the whole thing, and I think you lose it sometimes. And I will say, as far as the clown thing, here's my thing with the clown. I am not the person out there, like, honestly, most of the general population, who say, oh, is that the one where he dresses as a clown? Ridiculous. What a terrible movie. I'm not like that, because I get it. What I don't understand, by the way, I'm sorry, I got to do this the right way. This is way too serious of a conversation.
I'm so happy.
So what and let's be serious for a moment. What I don't understand is why this guy who's a secret agent thinks he can come up and dress as a clown and have a better result in trying to defuse a bomb or convince people that he's serious, as opposed to just strolling in and going, hey, there's some bad guys chasing me. Clearly, look at me. I'm who I am. But he takes all this time when a bomb is ready to explode. I don't know, what did it take? 10, 15, 30 minutes to dress up as a clown? So why is he taking all this time? I get the ape thing. The ape thing he had to hide. But why did he dress up as a clown?
Well,
why just walk in?
He needed to evade the security staff. I mean, I do admit,
but they weren't working. The security staff weren't working for Kamal Khan.
No, but they might have held him up. So that's why he just needed to kind of tear in there, and hey, it worked.
But a clown walking up to a bomb concerns me more than Roger Moore dressed as a circus worker.
Yeah. You got a point.
I'm just saying.
It's great that he has the exact same clown outfit as 009 was killed in as well. I guess that must be the only
There's a limitation on clown outfits. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you then about, because you touched on General Orlov then and his Steven Berkoff's crazy performance, because I just linking back to another one of these videos that we did on The Living Daylights, because I think these two films share an awful lot in common. argument with regards the villains. There isn't really like one main villain. It is kind of
Yeah.
two main villains, and each kind of have their own thing going on. But in contrast with The Living Daylights, it works for me so much better here. Like, I love Louis Jourdan as Kemal Khan. I love Steven Berkov as General Orlov. And it's the fact that if you'd have cast other people in those parts, I don't think it would have been half as fun. Like, for instance, in The Living Daylights, where I think they could have maybe cast actors to bring a bit more fun to those roles. I feel like here, the actors are doing more than what is on the page, and that's exciting. Like, Steven Berkov is a mad bastard. He's gonna turn it up to 11 no matter what you ask him to do. I've seen him in many a film, and he is just crazy. And I think it was Barbara Broccoli's idea to get in on this one. I think she'd seen him on stage. But I think they do really well. To say that neither of them have, a hook hand or a cat to stroke or a scar or anything like that. They do so well I think they are the most underrated Bond villains. But I just absolutely love them. How do you feel about them?
Love them.
Oh,
love them. And I love them because under the theme of, when I order my pizza, sometimes I want a little extra Parmesan cheese. They are that Parmesan cheese. I mean, they had to come to this table and be over the top. If they were subtle, they would have been lost. Louis Jourdan is amazing. He has some of the best, I will go out on a limb and say he has some of the best bad guy quotes of the entire franchise. The whole extinct one, the whole, you have a bad habit of, just all these things. Every line that he says, even as he says, Octopussy, Octopussy, Octopussy. I mean, who doesn't want to say Octopussy? When you get your ticket in 1983, you want to say Octopussy like that. And Orlov, my gosh, again, he's as over the top as Kamal Khan in the sense of, I can imagine, like, can you imagine just having a regular conversation? Like, Danielle says, we're having spaghetti. And I'm like, we're having spaghetti, but I told you that I am gluten-free. I mean, just everything is just so crazy. Like, everybody else is just sitting there with big bushy eyebrows in that setting in Russia, and he's flipping a gourd. Like, I'm pretty sure that dot was an aneurysm come to life. So I think he's perfect for the role. Other than them observing some jewelry, inexplicably smashing jewelry, didn't get that at all. Like, I don't know. There was something that was missing. And by the way, missing in the sense of taking them from an 8 to a 10. So it's not taking them from a 4. I don't think they're a 4 bad guys. I think they're like an 8, which is huge. But yeah, so yes, love them. And they're perfectly suited for this movie. They are.
Oh, I think they play off Roger incredibly well. Yeah. No, they're
I'm talking
excellent.
more about the situations. And by the way, that's the only disconnect. And there were some things I think even you said in one of your reviews, and I've heard other people say, I feel like this film, and again, it's why it makes it such a fun, guilty pleasure, is, they put everything in the kitchen sink, almost sometimes literally, where it was like, the time of Indiana Jones. And so everything was over the top, and so they had to put the sheep's head eyeball. I mean, you had to have Kamal Khan, take the eyeball and, just start eating it. And my point being is like,
that's amazing.
If you're going to do that, oh my God, that eyeball. By the way, sheep's eyeball, delicious. If you're going to do that, just accept that you have now gone fully batshit crazy Bond movie, and then you could sit back and relax and enjoy it. But I don't eat this and think Cold War movie. I eat this and I go, delicious sheep's eyeball cheesy movie. Love it.
It is a movie of two halves. I'll admit that. It is like hour one, like from when they get to India, it becomes Indiana Jones territory. And obviously this was released before Temple of Doom. So I think it was just kind of aping a lot of those adventure-y serial kind of stuff, Most Dangerous Game and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah,
And then when it moves out of India, it does become Cold War sort of thriller again. But I love that. I love that variety, and both areas work really well. I actually think that like it's probably got some of the best action of the entire Roger Moore era in this.
yes.
It's one of the most action packed. Certainly, they don't let up. It's like every kind of 5 or 10 minutes there is something new. The Acrostar is phenomenal. The taxi chase through India, even little flourishes of action are just given so much personality. Like the fight in Octopussy's palace could have been really dull, but they gave the the buzzsaw that I can see behind you, which is so cool. Yeah. Oh, and the picture as well.
Oh yeah,
Awesome.
it's got the picture.
That's amazing. Because those are like that could have been a kind of a throwaway nothing fight
Yeah,
sequence. Like, as much as I like A View to a Kill, just comparing it again, there are fights in that film, like when Bond is at Stacy's house and he has to fight off a couple of goons. There's nothing much going on. It's just a
right.
fight sequence. Whereas in Octopussy, every single action scene, fight sequence, it has a little bit of flavor, it has a little bit of spice, a little bit of personality. And I love that. The whole train sequence is just, oh, chef's kiss. Wonderful. I absolutely adore it.
We always do that. The chef's kiss. I I agree 100%. I had so much fun watching the action. I got to tell you a quick story too. Everybody will hear this. Um, when I saw this just a cute couple days ago, I saw the Siskel and Ebert 1983 review of this, which is a weird review. It's like 6 minutes long, and I'm not exaggerating. 5 minutes out of the six are not even them talking; it's showing clips. So
Mm,
lazy. But one of the things they say what is action packed. So I'm like, I I really am going to look for the action, but the action really never stops,
mm,
and it's so well done. And what I like is this movie gets dinged a lot for the 56-year-old Roger Moore. And
mm.
there's an argument there. I mean, we'll talk about it when we speak about Roger Moore, I'm sure, but there's an argument there for that. However, the way they incorporate, and I don't mean stunt doubles, that's always horrific in these Roger Moore movies, but the way they incorporate the action into the settings, into the locations, into the environments, and into the story is pretty damn good.
Mm.
And even from a direction standpoint, I'm not usually hopefully the guy, I never interviewed the guy, but John Glenn, I'm not usually a defender of his direction, but in this, the way the action is woven is so good, and I buy it. More importantly, like yes, this fight scene, it's fun, it's ridiculous, it's over the top. But if it was a Daniel Craig moment where there's people bleeding out and Roger Moore is lifting a guy's leg up so he can bleed out on the floor, people would be like, "What the actual f is this?" Like it would be even more alarming to me in this movie. I need to have a guy suffocate by being dunked into an octopus tank. I need that in this movie. Without that, it's not Octopussy. So I think the parts work together. And I think Roger Moore, God love him, he's so aware of who he is and what movie he's in. So this could have very easily been Austin Powers before Austin Powers, easily. But Roger Moore takes it with such aplomb and such almost like snarkiness of like, you know what, there's a wink and a nod to the audience. You're coming along with the ride, that it works in this case.
Let's stick on Roger then, because I think
Sure.
because I completely agree with everything you said, and I think to go back to his age point, like his age in this one, well, you know what, it's not really the age. Like age is just a number. It is how the film is
Good
constructed
man.
around him to to whether or not he is believable. Like in this film, I
Mm,
believe he is James Bond. Like yes, I know he's not the actually hanging on the side of the train, but they cut around the stunt doubles really well. I think he sells it in the physical moments that he does have. And again, to unfavorably compare it to A View to a Kill, but that is the one where you can see that, even in moments like, he'll throw a punch in one shot and it's clearly some other guy. It takes away from that believability.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't necessarily the age, it is the filmmaking around him. Like, I don't blame him for
Mm,
doing it. If someone offered me the role of James Bond at 50, 5 or whatever, I'd do it.
yeah.
But they construct this film around him much better than they do A View to a Kill, definitely.
But so this is a great conversation because, and you already know this, like take the Bond community, and the Bond community, as much as we love it and we feel like, it's a giant, giant community of people, it probably represents less than 10% of the movie going audience. And that's probably being generous. So if you take the other 90%, they would probably say, oh, Octopussy, isn't that where Roger Moore is getting up in age, you know, because of the realization before A View to a Kill.
Mm.
So to give that some sort of deference, I'll say this, even Roger Moore, before he accepted and said yes to this, was thinking he was probably getting a little bit up in age. But I think that the way they serve it up, especially with Maude Adams, especially with Octopussy and putting them together, I think it's very believable. I think it works extremely well. It doesn't seem like an old fogey, you know, being creepy. And I would say, and there are some cases in A View to a Kill where there's this just going beyond the bar and going into the creepy world. Whereas here, it just seems very natural. Like, you know, the first thing where he sleeps with Magda, it just seems, I mean, she's very young, she's very beautiful, very striking. And by the way, very good actress. Like she doesn't do these throwaway kind of bimbo-ish lines.
Mm.
I really felt like this could just be an older guy that's engaging with a younger dude. They both know that, you know, she's up to something, he's up to something. It's almost like this agreement that they have. I just found it very believable. So I think Moore is one of the highlights of the film. I mean,
Oh,
I just enjoyed him from beginning to end.
yeah, totally. And I
Yeah.
agree again with the chemistry with the leading ladies in it.
Yeah.
He's so charming. I never think like in A View to a Kill, where even you know, beyond Stacy, even when he's in that little, you know, iceberg submarine at the start of the
Yeah.
thing, and I'm like, I don't know about this. I feel like he has more confidence here than he will
Mm,
have in 2 more years'
yeah.
time. And I think that just exudes off the screen. Like there is still massive age gaps between him and Christina Wayborn, Maude Adams, and yet maybe it's their
Oh, yeah.
characters as well. Like they're confident, they take control of situations. They're really badass characters, and maybe that helps as well. But no, I mean, Roger Moore could have chemistry with a, you know, a potted palm if you wanted him to. He's that affable
Easily.
bloke. But here, I really think he's firing on all cylinders.
I do as well. And I want to speak as 2011 David, as opposed to 2021 David, who's
Oh, okay.
grown to really appreciate and enjoy Octopussy for what it is. 2011 Octopussy would have seen the train scene, would have seen the ending on the plane when Roger Moore's hanging on and go,
Hmm.
yeah, right, bullshit. You know, hanging on like, hey, how about a little bit of reality, you know? Especially after coming off of like Quantum of Solace and things like that.
Mm.
Um, 2021 post-pandemic David has really softened, and he needs a little fun, and he I think he's a little bit more comic booky. Listen to me talking like he's some other guy. I need help. But I think if you go into this movie understanding that it's a comic book Adam West
Mm.
version of James Bond and not the version over there of the Daniel Craig era, I think you can really embrace this and almost hit Calvin highs of this. But speaking of that, Calvin, what did you think of the actual song, An All-Time
Oh,
High?
oh no, it was all so
Sorry, I had to
positive,
throw this
David.
in. Oh, it's not Chef Kiss. It's not Chef Kiss.
It is one of the few things in the film that is not Chef's Kiss. I'm afraid I'm not a fan of this one. But it is one of those. It's when I look at ranking all of the songs, it just so happens to end up in like the bottom five or whatever because it is
Mm,
quite flat. I like it in the moments, like in the score when it's used as a romantic theme throughout the film,
yeah.
but as a song, you know, they're still on that kind of soppy ballady kind of a trajectory that they've been on since Nobody Does It Better at this point. So it's been what like 6 years, 4 films of quite soft songs, and it just feels like it's reached a nadir with this. It's lacking in personality. I appreciate it would be very hard to get Octopussy into a song, much less find something to rhyme with it. So I'm fine with it being All Time High rather than Octopussy, but it's not one of my favorites. Are you going to really surprise me now and say that you absolutely adore it?
I can't get enough. No, absolutely not.
Oh,
I
right.
despise it. It's first of all, even the visuals behind it are a bit wonky and strange. I mean, the laser pen octopus, just
Yeah.
really. Um, but I just don't know what it means. Like I looked at the
Mm.
lyrics and it's like, what is the bearing to the film? I mean, you really have to be very artsy fartsy to kind of have this connection. I don't know what the choice process was in doing that. Rita Coolidge sounds fine, but it's
Mm.
definitely not one. I mean, look, if I had a compilation, I was driving across country and I'm just listening to Bond stuff, I'd be passing that one every time. I'm not
Mm.
going to listen to it. And it feels underwhelming. It
Mm.
really does. So, and I know you're, you might be a fan of the Moonraker one, but even I don't know, it just feels like there's been this um a succession where I'm just not, excuse the pun, I'm not high on this. It just doesn't sit well, as opposed to Barry's score, which
Mm,
this is one of Barry's best scores. I mean,
mm,
the big drums and the da-da-da-da, I mean, it captures the Cold War, but it captures the love scenes so well. So I
mm.
really have like hot and cold here.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I love the version of the Bond theme that he uses throughout the film. I think it matches it really incredibly well. Can I take you further back in time? Because I'm curious to know. Yeah,
Okay,
brace
let's
yourself.
go. Let's go.
We're going to 95 gigawatts or whatever it
Yeah, yeah.
is. um, I want to go back to 1983, David. Nope. Yes, 1983.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming you did you see this in cinema? I think I remember.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, because I seem to remember
Yeah.
you saying
I've
since.
seen them all in cinema since The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
you.
my father would take me every time, and I will have
Mm,
been, just to kind of put some context around it. So 7, 13, 13, 14, 15. I would have been like 14 or 15 years old.
okay. Because I would say that's like perfect age for like really, getting pumped for a Bond film. Like when I think of
Yeah.
being a teenager, it was like it's the best time. So how did 1983, David, feel coming out of the cinema after the first watch of this?
I kind of remember this
Oh,
actually.
brilliant.
So yeah. So 1983, David liked it, didn't hate it,
Hmm.
but didn't love it. But I'll tell you why. And you'll appreciate this because you and I just got done with some other friends doing a video on nostalgia and
Hmm.
how important memory and recapturing of that memory plays into part. So I used to be a huge, still kind of am, huge Star Wars fan.
Hmm.
And that was the summer of Return of the Jedi.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So everything to me, even as a 14-year-old, was Return of the Jedi. I mean,
Hmm.
magazines, articles, clothing, collectibles, it was all Return of the Jedi. And then there were other movies that came in and around Return of the Jedi. I mean, really, just honestly. And this happened to be one of them. So actually thinking about it, at 14 or 15, I wouldn't have gone with my father. I would have gone with friends at that
Yeah.
point. So I probably went with a best friend or two to see this, and we probably would have had a laugh and fun out of it. But unfortunately, this would have been probably forgotten a week or two later.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember just having fun, but not thinking it was revolutionary.
I can appreciate that because I do think going back to something that I said earlier on about it is another Bond film. It is doing the elements really well. It's got a great story to tell, but if like comparing this to Return of the Jedi, which is like a big, climax of a trilogy, a saga, like the big ending sort of note, that it's going to be doing something different
Yeah.
and progressing a story. This is kind of another one, and
Mm.
I don't know how I would react to that if I saw it at the cinema, where I was just like, oh, okay, because with the Daniel Craig era, we're used to each one is a kind of a reinvention. They're doing different things in each one. Pierce Brosnan as well. I think they've been doing that ever since Timothy Dalton, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that doesn't surprise me that that would be your reaction coming out
Yeah.
of it. And my second question actually is
Sure.
like the Battle of the Bonds. Like, how was that? Were you involved in that? Were you completely engrossed in Star Wars?
I was never aware that it was a Battle of the Bond. I was never aware that there was another Bond movie. And a part of that was here in the States during that time. And I had to kind of go back and really think about this because I knew you were going to talk about this. It wasn't so much a thing here in the States. I mean,
Huh.
people will disagree with me. You'll get lots of comments like you were in a coma. Maybe it just wasn't of interest to me, but I don't remember commercials like back to back going, Roger Moore, and then the next commercial being Sean Connery's back, back, back. I
Mm.
just don't remember that. I remember seeing Never Say Never Again many years later, and I'm talking about maybe the late 80s.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, late 80s, like 1989. I remember like somebody saying like, there's an older Sean Connery movie. And I'm like, what do you mean an older Sean Connery movie? Like I wasn't even aware of that. So this was not even a factor, and I guarantee it was not a factor for my friends. There was no other movie than Octopussy for us.
That is so interesting. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
even on the radar. Like,
No, and don't forget, for my age group, Roger Moore was James Bond, not Sean Connery. Sean Connery was the historical film Bond that you would
huh.
go back and watch if you wanted a more, your father's historical view, but Roger Moore, that was our guy. Like when you went to a Bond movie, you're like, well, of course it's going to be Roger Moore,
Yeah.
which is why
Nice.
people pushed against Dalton.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really interesting to hear that, because I was gonna yeah, ask how it was seeing, we're like 6 years on from the last Bond film. Like, can you imagine a year where we have two cinematic Bond films? I was going to ask how they compared, but I guess I
I
found that really
can't.
fascinating. Yeah, that it's
Yeah,
like it wasn't even on the radar. That's
yeah.
really interesting. Okay.
Have you
So
ever watched them close to close together, like Octopussy and Never Say Never Again close?
I try to avoid Never Say Never Again.
Can't see why.
It's yeah, it's not one of my go-tos unless I'm watching it for video purposes. So I just treat it as like academic research more than a
Yeah,
thing to be enjoyed, which
smart man.
yeah, I know some people like it, but yeah. Okay, well, back to the film, because I do
Hmm.
want to touch on Maude Adams as the title character, Octopussy.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's back from The Man with the Golden Gun. How does her performance here stack up with The Man with the Golden Gun? Because I know you quite like The Man with the Golden Gun, or at least you
I
like it
do.
more than the average Bond fan. I think you ranked it a little higher than a lot of
And
people are going to
this.
expect.
Yeah, and I actually ranked it higher than this, or I will say this though, and again, revelation. If I did the ranking today, I'd probably rank Octopussy higher than Man with the Golden Gun now.
Wow.
You've helped me, Joe's helped me, my son has helped me, and then rewatching this film and appreciating it more has helped me. And she's a big reason.
Mm,
She is far superior in this role.
mm,
Clearly, I think she's a very good foil of Bond's. I love even the way that she's introduced. The fingers, the feeding of the fish. It's very Doctor No. It's like little bits at a time. You see feet and shoulders, and you're not even introduced to her until like halfway through the movie, and it's the name of the freaking movie. It's
yeah.
like the whole thing with Doctor No. You don't see him to the last few minutes, but I think she's so good and effective. Um, she's not also a victim in this. Like she does a lot of badass things in this, but she can also be romantic. And I don't want a Bond girl to be badass for badass sake without
Mm,
being, someone that could also love and appreciate people. And her and Roger Moore are so perfect together that he enhances her and she
mm,
enhances him. And there's a lot of believability that she would lead this group. She comes across as the A-type leader of this group of crazy women. And honestly, I don't mean crazy women like they're batshit crazy. I'm saying crazy like they're acrobats that can do stunts and fight each other, and they're part of a circus and they're subterfuge and I mean, it's a little bit crazy, but she adds a level of believability. And the
mm,
smuggling story, I think, is very effective too. And I'm just going to say it. She looks phenomenal. I
mm.
mean, she's beautiful. She's stunning today, yesterday, it doesn't matter. So I think she's actually one of the best.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, praise indeed. I mean, I'm fully on the Octopussy train. She's one of my very favorite Bond girls. I think to your point about you believe her as the leader of this group, I think that she does something that I can't ever quite put my finger on, but she's not terribly physical. Like your point of, badass for badass sake. She's not given much of a fight sequence or anything like that to kind of assert her as being this, tough, figure, and yet she just exudes a confidence, and I never don't believe her as the leader of these women, many of whom are far more physical than she is, doing
Yeah.
some of the gymnastics, and I think Magda probably has more sort of fighting moments than Octopussy does, and yet I never question her believability in that part, and I think she's
Yeah.
she's doing something really great as an actress to do that, but also play a bit of a damsel in distress, like towards the end where she gets taken on the plane and everything. She
But
she
to me,
does
that
seem
was
to
the
do that.
weakest part because
Oh,
here's
really?
Kamal Khan, who, well, in some ways. So 70% of the movie, he's got this like healthy respect and fear of her.
Mm,
And then obviously it turns, he becomes kind of the cutthroat and, takes her hostage. It's like, to me, that whole fight at the end, and this is like one of these missing parts for me, feels like it was tacked on. Like we need to have a big fight with people dressed in kind of uniforms, and it's 6:45 in the morning, and guards are drinking and trying to get it on with women. I don't understand that at all. What, 6:45 in the morning at night? Yeah, I could see, but there's a lot of like weird issues there, and the fight's a little goofy too, but to me, it felt like that was tacked on, and even her being taken hostage like took this kind of like strong individual, this, and then kind of like weakened her. It's like, well, now she's got to get rescued. Hot air balloon, hot air balloon. I just, it falls apart a little bit for me there.
I mean, it's crazy. It's the hot air balloon. I don't know what possessed Bond and Q to think that a
So
hot air
practical.
balloon would be the best with a big Union Jack on it. So, like, but I love it. I do love that little end coda. I completely agree that it does kind of pile. The climax with the bomb is kind of this big moment that the film is leading up to for about half an hour, I think.
Yeah.
And then you immediately go into a fight sequence, and then Bond's shooting around the palace, and then you go into the plane stuff. But I love it. Again, it goes back to this being one of the most action-packed Bonds, like in terms of
Yeah.
action sequences. Like when you look at something like Skyfall, for instance, there are really kind of like 3 big action sequences and then little pepperings at fight sequences throughout. I think Octopussy probably dwarfs a lot of Bond films in terms of like the big, big stakes
Yes.
action sequences that they've constructed, and I love it for that.
Well, there's a lot of people that say up until, which I tend to agree, up until kind of the Brosnan era, you really didn't have that type of like bombastic action that's kind of this nonstop that I think, we crave and want. Like,
Yeah.
even in No Time to Die, yeah, I want a good storyline, and I'll take some of that introspective Bond, because of course we're going to get that in Daniel Craig's era. It'd be weird not to. But damn it, they better take me for a 2 hour and 55 minute ride of nonstop action. That's what I want. I want to be, chewing my popcorn quicker and my heart racing. And Octopussy delivers on that incredibly well.
Wow, I'm so impressed with this. Like I have gotten up because I took a screenshot of your Bond ranking for research purposes. So you would potentially rank this a little bit above The Man with the Golden Gun. Am I correct? Because that's jumping up.
What was The Man with the Golden Gun?
17, whereas Octopussy is 19.
Yeah, I would put this above Man with a Golden Gun now. Yeah.
Would you dare put it above The Living Daylights at 16?
I might keep going.
Oh, but the corrupting influence of
I think I might
Joe.
actually, just from a total fun factor. Yes. No, yes, I would. Keep going. What's the next one?
Spectre.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You and Live Twice?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I've got a lot of heart for that film. And by the way, we haven't talked about it much, but oh my gosh, the locations in this film are phenomenal. I mean, Berlin, they just get right. It feels like, East Berlin, and India. And I know a lot of people like ding this film for like being racist and over the top with India scenes. First of all, 1983, you've got to be. And it's part of the fun factor. But I think they actually captured India beautifully. I mean, I think the landscapes, when you first see India and that beautiful helicopter scene with the Taj Mahal, this time, because I was watching it on my big screen TV with surround sound, I'm like, and it's like, even the VJ thing, that's his tennis racket back there, by the way. And how they weave, his friend, his accomplice as someone of an Indian descent, even though he's a tennis player and hasn't really acted. I think that was amazing. So yeah, maybe by the end of this discussion, it'll be better than You Only Live Twice. Where did Octopussy move to? Is it number like 14 now?
It would be 15 if it's below You Only Live Twice.
You must be loving this.
This is fantastic. I was not expecting this much love. But to be honest, I was watching it thinking like, whenever we prepare for these things, I do watch them and I'm like, I know David's going to hate that. I know he's going to love that. I know he's not going to like that.
Ooh.
For this one, honestly, I was going through it kind of wondering, what is David going to dislike about this? Because I know you love Roger so much, and I know you like a lot of 80s Bond. And
it was hard.
Yeah,
I had to nitpick the script writing. The weaving of different things together wasn't to the level that I want it to be. And yet, if you were to sit here and take your audiences and tax their patience further and weave through You Only Live Twice, I'm sure it's got a better weaving of a plot point than You Only Live Twice. But there's other factors that just kind of weigh against it.
I think it probably suffered from maybe a script draft too many, or the elements don't quite, because it is kind of there. If you are like super analytical about it, and I've talked about complicated plots, and then I get comments from people being like, "It's perfectly clear, aren't you paying attention?" and all that, and I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
sometimes with yeah, I don't treat these like academic exercises. So sometimes if I just stick on a Bond film, I might lose track of which Fabergé egg is which and why characters are suddenly thinking it's important and all that. I did kind of go
You
through this.
smashed the real one. There's no argument.
I did go through this with like a fine tooth comb. Like, how does Bond get the Romanov star to prove to Octopussy? But oh no, it is there. It's like it is there more or less. It,
It
it does
is.
it does hold water. I think
Yeah.
there are fewer plot holes in this one than there are in some of the earlier Connery ones. Anyway, where there are just things completely.
You know what it is? I'll tell you the two factors that work for me and against me with this film.
Mm,
Connery's films, I'm just going to say it, they're like holy ground to me. They're like
mm,
holy ground, honestly. Um, with this film also, there was, I would say, enough things where I could sit back and go, I'm not the type of, and there are, I'm not the type of Bond fan that says, look, you either give me a Timothy Dalton and a Daniel Craig film, or you give me nothing. Like, I need my
mm.
serious Bond. Like, no, I love gooey cheese pizza. Hello, give me that with a Chateau, and Chateaubriand is a different meal altogether. But with this film in particular, there were just little moments that didn't make it rank a little bit higher. And
Mm,
I'll actually give you one that you said that you really like is the plane fight I like. And if
mm,
I push aside the fact that clearly that's not Roger Moore, you're taking a 2021 David out of the equation when that happens. Kamal Khan's death is a bit weird to me. Like that death is a bit strange. And it's almost like in the Living Daylights in the beginning, when the guy goes over the cliff in the Jeep
mm.
and it explodes and you see him go, ah! And then there's this explosion. It's so abrupt. So you just see Kamal Khan go, ah! And then this toy plane crashes against a rock. And I'm like, I don't know how satisfying it is. Like I kind of would have, and I don't want to be disgusting. I don't want to be a Quentin Tarantino moment where the steering wheel is pushing through his head and it's bisectioning it into pieces and he goes flying against the back and he's on fire and he's careening down the cliff like in Temple of Doom, smashing along the way, all burning fire. That would be a kick-ass ending, by the way. Somebody do that. But but I don't know. It's just like Kamal Khan is like there and then he's not there. And that bothered me a bit.
I do have to agree with you on that. I think that the
Oh.
best Bond villain deaths are the ones where there is some irony to it, like Drax in
Mm,
Moonraker being shot and then off out into outer space. Elliot Carver being killed by his own CVAC drill. It's nice when there is some kind of organic irony in there. The
yeah.
less effective ones are like, well, I would say like Stromberg in Spy Who Loved Me. He just gets
Mm,
shot,
yeah.
which is not that great. And a villain with the prominence of Kamal Khan just kind of dying in a plane crash is also
Yeah.
just one of those like, well, that could have been anyone. Um, yeah, I've never picked up on it is exactly like the moment in The Living Daylights, like even
Yes.
like in terms of like the shot ordering of like the quick
Yes.
and then boom. I've never picked up on that, but that's completely, yeah,
I think because we're
accurate.
seeing them in such close succession with our debates that's probably coming up from time to time. I don't know.
Oh, that's really interesting.
What did you think of we've got to talk about him. What did you think of our man Q?
Oh, Q, I love him in this film. This is one where they were really using Desmond a lot in the 1980s. And yeah, I love him in this. I love that he gets to go, well, the character gets to go to India, but unfortunately, I think all of the actors' scenes were shot on a soundstage at Pinewood. So poor old him. But
Yeah, all right. So I'm with you. I like his attitude in this. I'll start with his
mm,
attitude. So it is the Q that we love, who is like just so frustrated with Bond. It's like, stop destroying my equipment and stop. When are you going to take me seriously? All the other double O's to do. That's the Q we get. And I love that. And Desmond's doing great in this. Like there's no cue cards, there's no weirdness.
mm,
His beats are perfect. The gadgets and this is what I mean by taking it over the top. Like you've got these, titillating moments, which this is
uh,
a lenticular lens. I swear to God, it
oh,
is.
wow. Yeah.
So it's actually moving. But like that moment, which I guess I'm misogynistic. I don't mind, because it's a laughable moment from the 80s, but it is a Roger Moore type moment. But those things are so over the top and goofy that those are the only things where I'm like, all right, so if I'm in a serious mood, then I'm going to be a little like even the balloon, like we were talking about, like why is Q being rushed by women at the end? And
Mm.
he's like, "Oh, there's no time for that." He's like, "Well, maybe just a moment or something." Like, what's about to happen to Q? I'm like, I want to see that movie. That's a great movie. Hard R. I like Bond's interaction with Q in this movie almost more than any other Bond movie ever.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because I wasn't just looking at Q to, look at David taking out his toys during the debate. Blah, blah, blah. Um, I really like the interaction there. If you watch Moore's face, because we're so focused on Q in this movie when
Mm.
Q's on. But if you look at Moore, his eyebrows, his arches, his disregard, his little throwaway lines are so masterful. And even, when Moore is, I love this prop. Someone
That's
made this for me.
fantastic.
Right. And they actually drew this
The
on here, just
handwriting
like
is perfect.
it's perfect. But even those moments where more clearly, in the movie, Bond is supposed to be sketching this and he kind of hands this over to show things and what it looks like and what the tattoo looks like. I love those interactions with all the characters, but him and Q are particularly effective during this. So if I was to ranking, this is going to blow your mind. Who are you, David? If I was to rank the Q Bond moments of the entire franchise, this would be in my top 5, maybe 3.
Wow.
Yes,
That's incredible. I mean, what
it's
company is
big.
it in? Can I ask, like, give a couple of other examples of like high-ranking ones for you? I just want to know kind of what the
I mean, I
surrounding.
absolutely love the Thunderball one,
Okay.
where, he's coming in and, Bond's like clicking on and off the thing. I mean, that's a particular one. And just for nostalgic sake, I've got to say when he first meets Desmond for the first time and he gets the attaché case, and then
Okay.
the Goldfinger one where he's going over the car. But again, the reasons those win are probably because they're holy ground. It's
Hmm.
not so much the interaction, because I think Connery is actually much more subtle when he deals with Q than Moore. Moore has
Hmm.
like this expression, these throwaway lines that are just over the top. But
Hmm.
this is, I mean, it's better than any Craig Q moment. It's better than any Dalton moment. It's better than any Brosnan Q moment. And there's some great ones that I absolutely adore. Even the GoldenEye one with that's my lunch, which I love that one. This one takes the Diamonds Are Forever cake. I mean, it's just so good.
Wow. That's yeah.
I
I mean,
think
I
I
mean,
I may have a fever.
I know. I'm like, are
Maybe
you
sick.
okay? I mean, yeah. I'm gonna. I mean, I will sing Q's praises in this. I think he's great. I love
Right.
the scene.
Right.
I mean, probably it's probably top 10, I guess, for me. Um, but no, I do love him. And similarly, while
He's
we're
great.
talking about MI6 regulars, I do just want to touch on Lois Maxwell's Moneypenny
Oh,
quickly, because I think it's interesting in so many Roger Moore films, she is just, she doesn't even get a chance to stand up in a couple of them. She's just like very quick and off we go. And just linking back to talking about Roger Moore's age as well, we had that discussion earlier on. Here, they are very much pointing out that she's, I don't even want to say she's aging, because she isn't. Like, she's still got that spark. She's still acting great. She's, but they have given her this younger Miss Penelope Smallbone, this young assistant who is obviously there, so that, they feel that they need to give Bond someone younger to flirt with. For some reason. Um, I find it very interesting, and I'm glad that Smallbone never reappeared. Not that the actress is doing anything wrong, but it feels weird.
yeah.
And I bless Lois Maxwell for doing it, because can you imagine turning up for work and being sort of like, right, well, we've decided you're too old for it now, so here is the one who we're
Yeah.
looking to replace you. But it is one of my favorite Bond and Moneypenny scenes, actually,
Oh,
despite
wow.
Penelope Smallbone, because I do like the chemistry that Roger and Lois have here,
Hmm.
and I think she gives. I think it might well be my favorite. I like their scene in For Your Eyes Only as well, but it is kind of top tier for me. I do really like it.
Wow. I, all right. So here's where we differ. It's one of my least favorite
Ah,
Money Penny moments. And I think a big reason is I felt like, especially this time around, I felt like the producers and the writers lost touch of what the Money Penny scene means to us, what it means
mm,
for us, how it, um, it's less about seeing sexual tension and things like that. It is, yes, there's the flirting, but it's playfulness. It's these two
Mm.
people are I think you even said in one of your discussions years back, it's two people who understand they're giving as much as they're getting, and they're getting
Mm.
as much as they're giving. And we love that. So the fact that you've got to do this whole small bone thing, and I just think it's so unnecessary. These are
Mm.
two colleagues that probably for years, I think this is how I would have liked the approach if I did it differently. Two colleagues that for years have flirted and batted, and they know they just come short of it, and so they have this tete-a-tete, or they're talking shit about the man, their boss, or something
Mm.
like that. Those are my favorite moments. Not, I go back to the Connery era, not when he's like kissing down her neck. It's like whatever.
Mm.
So to me, I don't know, it just seems that part with Smallbone is so weird, it diffuses any of the fun factor for me.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, I agree. Like, Smallbone being there is very odd, but I just like Roger and Lois together. I think that they have really great chemistry in that
Yeah.
moment. And it gives her,
Nostalgic wise.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it gives her a bit of a different way to play the scene as well, because you do kind of get that little bit of jealousy in there as well, which I do quite like.
Yeah.
Um,
True. True. But yeah, just I wouldn't put it in my top 10
mm.
Money Penny scenes. No.
I love that we had to dig as deep as talking about the Moneypenny scene to finally like get something that we disagree
What
on,
has
because that,
happened? This is so different than literally our last debate of For Your
yeah,
Eyes Only. I
I
mean,
know,
it's
right?
like polar opposite.
I know. Okay, so kind of wrapping up, we always talk about the Bond lifestyle kind of elements of
Mm,
these films, and I'm curious to know how you feel about this because, as you pointed out earlier on, Bond is in disguise so much, and
yeah.
I know that Oliver Brown are not going to be doing the Bond as the knife wielding twin,
I
you know.
know. I
Uh,
heard that they announced that they're not going to do it anymore.
this is such a shame. But how does it stand up for you? Because I think for what, like, he's in two tuxedos. He's in a white tuxedo and a black tuxedo. I love that.
Yes. Well, I am 50-50 with this, and I'll
Hmm.
explain why. I think they are giving us, slash Roger Moore is giving us a lot of Bond
Hmm.
moments. He's in pajamas, he's in two tuxedos, he's in the 7 disguises that I talked about, and he's in a lot of different outfits. So I really do like that they're giving us a lot of that from a sartorial standpoint. I love that he's eating dinner,
Hmm.
and gambling. Like those are the tropes that oh boy, when they show up in a movie, like honestly, as stupid as it sounds, if I see Daniel Craig eating in No Time to Die, just having a muffin, in the morning when he says good morning to Madeline, I'm gonna freak out. Like I'm gonna be like, yeah, Bond's eating, yay, lifestyle moment. So it doesn't take much. However, what he's wearing is a sign of the times. I mean, look, I'm not going to be, going out tonight on date night with Danielle with a knife wielding outfit, nor any of his other outfits. The tuxedos are a sign of their times. They're big, billowy, and that giant, Batman Batwing of a bow tie are not great. They're not great. And Roger Moore looks amazing in them. But, to me, as they sit with me today, they're a bit dated. I, however, love 2 outfits in the movie, to
I
which
have
I
a feeling
do
you're wearing
have.
one.
Yes, I'm wearing one. This is just, come on. Safari outfits never go out of style. They never go out of style. And it's not just Tom Ford saying that. So I love that he wore the safari thing. And by the way, wore it very naturally, perfect environment. I mean, he's being hunted like a man. I mean, talk about the turning of it. And he saves, the sit and the Tarzan yell and any other the soupy stuff that happens with this outfit. But the other outfit that I really like is the attack on the Monsoon Castle when he goes
All
down
right.
the banister and he's
Yeah.
machine gunning the little pineapple so he doesn't get his wedding tackle smashed. That jacket, which I own that jacket, and Oliver Brown did make that jacket, Weisenheimer. Um, I love that because if he zips it up, he's in a dark midnight navy. That's what it's actually made out of, midnight navy cloth.
Hmm.
So he could be like very subtle, very sneaky Bond, just like Connery did really well. So I think that there's wins and losses from a lifestyle standpoint. What did you think?
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'm a fan. I even quite like the tuxedos. I like the big
Hmm,
bat bow tie, as you mentioned. That's great. But I'm similar to you. And again, like just going back to Hitchcock, because this is something that you see in a lot of Hitchcock films. He has his main characters eating, and there is just something about characters eating and drinking and picking what food and what drink they're gonna get that I'm immediately tuned into. And it's come up over the years. Like that's when I was a kid. I don't know if I really cared, but like these days, I'm like, what are they going to order?
yeah,
I'm with you on Daniel Craig as well. Actually, I'm just thinking if he's eaten. He definitely ate in Casino Royale when he won
that's it.
the thing with Vespa.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd like to see him like proper ordering the three courses, the drinks to go with.
It's
Yeah,
part of the Bond lifestyle. It's part of that whole pomp and circumstance that you see Bond do. And I love even Roger Moore when he knows everything about everything, when he's kind of the smart Weisenheimer and nobody needs to correct him, because that is kind of like James Bond. He can and
mm,
knows everything, allegedly.
yeah. Okay, well, this was really interesting. I did not think this discussion was going this way when yeah, particularly compared to like, again, going back to your rankings, this was one peg above Moonraker originally, which is,
Yeah.
yeah. And comparing this to that discussion that we had, I'm like, oh, wow, this is, yeah, interesting.
This just keeps getting better. And it
Yeah.
does. These conversations help. I dare say, if you visit me after No Time to Die, this may even climb up higher in the ranking,
Wow.
because I get what you and Joe and my son and probably thousands of people watching this right now have said, which is sit back, relax, have fun. Don't be so serious. We live in a serious time. If you want a Roger Moore that delivers on all of that, takes you along the ride for action, delivers a clown for God's sakes, or two. This is the film. This is the James Bond film. And it used to be, Calvin, I'll do one last parting word that again will flip you out for the rest of your weekend. If somebody came to me and said, I've got my family and we want to have a really just a fun weekend James Bond flick, I would actually tell them to watch Octopussy.
Wow.
Yes. More
I'm
than any Sean Connery, more than any Daniel Craig. I said, if you want fun and you want a family flick, this is it.
I am going to be flipping all weekend from that. That is something else. I think my big takeaway from this discussion is big cheesy gooey pizza. I think that,
Yes.
yeah, that is
Right.
it's a perfect description. Like I love Octopussy so much. I always have. It's always been just a go-to film for just everything that you said, just fun, entertainment, escapism, warm comfort blankets. It's, yeah, it just excels.
If I could
So
pair a food, if anybody wants to watch Octopussy again after being motivated watching this, it would be pizza and beer.
yeah,
Pizza and beer would be perfect for this film.
completely agree. Okay, well, this was a very civil and yeah,
Oh,
I feel like we came, middle ground. Well, not even middle ground. I feel like we're both on the very positive end for
yeah,
so much of this. I don't think we will have that with the next one, which I think we're still going to do Doctor No as the next one, as a
we
pretty
are.
big. Yeah, I feel like we're going to have some pretty big differences on that one. So yeah,
I just can't wait.
I'm looking forward to
I
it.
can't wait.
Brilliant. Okay, well, David, thank you so much for joining me. This has been so much fun as always. I really appreciate you making time to have this discussion. It's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait for the next one.
Awesome. Take care. See you.